Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and today's project is this dress that I am wearing. We're going to be using my Esma top pattern and adding sleeve ruffles and tiers to make this cute breezy dress. Now, as mentioned, I'm using my Esma top pattern and I've got the link to get that below, and then I will meet you at the sewing machine and show you how to hack it to make this dress. So here is the top part of my Esma. What I did, I went ahead and according to the pattern, I cropped it off at the length and shorten line that is marked on the pattern near the waistline. Then I sewed these shoulder, side seams, neck facing, everything according to the pattern instructions. The only thing I changed is that I did not sew on cuffs, I made a ruffle. So this ruffle is 7 inches high. And then to determine the length of the ruffle that I made, I went ahead and I measured my sleeve opening, and I measured all the way around front and back, and I multiplied that times 1.75 for my length. So again, this is 7 inches long, and then it was times 1.75 for the length around. Now, the finish measurement is not 7 inches because I took a ½ inch off for the seam allowance here, and I took a ½ inch off where I did the hem. I went ahead and hemmed this, gathered it, and sewed it onto the sleeve. The process for this is the same as the process I'm about to show you for the skirt, as far as gathering and sewing it on. So for the skirt, I am going to measure my waistline here, and you'll see I get 18 inches, and I need to double that so that it is front and back. That's going to give me 36. Then I'm going to multiply this times 1.5. It will be a little less full than the sleeves because I don't want as much fullness at the waist here. 36 times 1.5 is 54 inches. So I'm going to take my fabric here, and I want to cut out 54 inches and then add a seam allowance. And then for the height of this first tier of the dress, I want it to be 14 inches. I'm gonna fold this piece of fabric right sides together, and I went ahead and you can see I already sewed a seam on the two short edges like so. Now this is a loop. What I want to do now is I want to mark the quarter points of this loop. So if I fold it flat with the seam at the back, then this is going to be the center front. And then if I fold the center front to match the back seam, that will give me the other 2 quarter points. I want to mark quarter points on the bodice as well. So I already have 2 side seams. Those are 2 quarter points. And then if I fold this so that I am matching those 2 side seams, that will show me where the center front and center back are. And now what I want to do is gather this loop so that those quarter points match up. I've gone ahead and sewn 2 rows of basting stitches all along the top edge only of this tier of the skirt. And the shirt is going to end up going right side up inside the skirt, and the skirt is wrong side out right now. And then I would be matching these points. Before I do that, I like to kind of lay it all flat and get the gathers to sort of generally match up. So I'm going to use my pin to pull up the stitches in the center front here. And then I can pull and gather both of these sides. And you can see I want the center front, so I need to gather a little more. As I am doing this, I'm also kind of trying to evenly space the gathers so that they're not all clumped up in one spot. And once I have that approximately, I will go ahead and do that on the back as well. Make sure when you're matching these up that you've got the front of the skirt with the front of the bodice. And then go ahead and do your final distribution of the gathers and pin this together. Okay, once you have those gathers pretty evenly spaced and pinned to the bodice, you're going to sew around that waistline and finish that seam. So let's take this over to the machine and do just that. And once you've got that waistline seam sewn, it's always a good idea to check and make sure you didn't get any weird puckers inside the seam. And flip it out to check the outside as well. And then you can go ahead and remove those basting stitches, and you're going to want to finish that seam. So I'm going to run it through my serger. If you don't have a serger, you could also use pinking shears. You could do a faux overlock on the edge, just something to keep it from fraying. Okay, here is what the waistline looks like after I've finished it with my serger and I've pulled out the basting stitches. And when I say pulled out basting stitches, literally just take the ends of the thread and pull until the stitches come out. I'm using a linen rayon blend fabric, which is a kind of loosely woven, so they come out really easily from this fabric. For the bottom tier, we're going to just repeat what we did again. So we're going to measure this, or remember the measurement, it was 54 inches. Multiply that times 1.5, and then I am going to, this was 14 inches, so I'm going to cut a 7-inch ruffle. Now, keep in mind that I'm kind of short, I'm 5'3", so depending on the length that you want your dress, you might want to play with the length of the tiers. It's always a good idea to have the top tier be about twice as long as the bottom tier. Proportionally, that will just look good. So for the bottom tier here, I'm cut it 7 inches tall. Then I've gone ahead and I did a small hem along the bottom edge, and I sewed my basting stitches on the top. Now, because this was 54 inches and I needed 1.5 times that, I had to cut 2 pieces to make my bottom tier. So I then put those right sides together and I sewed the short edges. I of course did that before I hemmed, and then hemmed and did my gathering stitches. And then now what I'm going to do is the same thing I did before, where I'm going to quarter this. I'm going to pull on my basting stitches to gather it so that it is the same as the bottom of the top tier here. And then I'm going to place those right sides together and stitch it up. Okay, y'all, I have gone ahead and attached that bottom tier. The only thing I did differently from the upper tier is that because this was 2 pieces of fabric making up this tier, I placed the 2 seams at the sides instead of the 1 center back seam like I had on the upper tier. And as you're making yours, you may find that you need to cut 2 or 3 or more pieces to get to the tier length you need. The important thing is to space those seams out around the garment in a pleasing manner. So that's something to take into consideration as you cut them. But here is the finished dress. And this is the last on a whole series of hacks that I have done to this pattern, the Esma top, which you can see in this playlist. And it's going to cover things that I kind of skimmed over in this video, like how to do a really nice neck facing. So all of those things are covered, and I encourage you to check that out and see how many different ways you can hack this one pattern.